Now, if you're anything like most people, you'll see your pension contribution go out of your salary each month or each week, but really have absolutely no idea where it goes. And that's a big problem, particularly if you're planning to retire early. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through the exact steps to work out how much you need. So that's going to range from the sort of money you're going to need to live your lifestyle at 55, the sort of pension pot size you're going to need, and then work backwards from there to work out exactly how much you need to be contributing each month to get to that point. But before we get into it, my name's Ben, I'm a qualified financial planner, and my aim is to help people in their 30s, 40s and 50s feel more confident and get more clarity around their financial future. So the first thing we need to think about is actually how much money are you likely to be spending when you reach 55? Now, for most people, they're hopefully going to have cleared their mortgage by this point. So really the only costs you should really be thinking about are basic expenses such as, you know, your kind of household bills, your groceries, and kind of essential travel expenses. But then on top of that, you want to start working out, okay, well, above and beyond that, how much money do I really want to be spending and how much do I need to be spending? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on screen now some research into some figures from the Retirement Living Standards. So effectively, this is supposed to give you a rough idea as to what the minimum income would need to be in order to effectively cost your, kind of as I spoke about, your basic level of expenditure. But then above and beyond that, there are things that are, I suppose, more luxurious. So you've got kind of what they call a comfortable level of retirement and a moderate level of retirement. So hopefully these should give you some figures or some, I suppose, some ideas in terms of the sorts of figures of income you'll likely need to retire at 55. Now you might be thinking, okay, what does minimum, moderate and comfortable actually mean? Like, okay, great, you've given me the figures, but what does that mean in terms of the lifestyle? So again, what I'll do on screen is give you a rough idea for each category, what level of lifestyle you'll actually be living based on that level of income. So hopefully that should help give you an idea of, you know, the sorts of things you might expect to be doing and the sort of life you'll expect to be living based on those different expenses. Okay, so now we've worked out kind of the rough expenses that you'll have at age 55 based on your kind of different levels of lifestyle. What we want to look at next is, okay, well, if that's the amount of money I'm going to need each year to live, what does my pension pot need to be to achieve that? So again, what I'll do now is I'll show you on screen, again, some breakdowns in terms of for each kind of, I suppose, level of expense or lifestyle, how much you'll need in your pension pot to achieve that. Now, one thing you want to be bearing in mind with this is that generally, when you're looking at a pension pot size and how much you can draw down from it each month or each year, you want to be looking at something called the safe withdrawal rate. Now, effectively, this is a rate which is kind of, I suppose, industry standard in terms of how much you can take from your pension each year and ensure it doesn't run out during your lifetime. Now, this is probably going to vary quite a lot depending on when you retire, because clearly, if you're retiring at 55 versus 70, that money is going to have to last you different amounts of time. So generally what you want to be doing is probably taking no more than 3.5% to 4% of that pension pot size each year. So again, that's how we're working backwards from those figures. So if you're looking at your, you know, potentially, you know, you've looked at those lifestyles and thought, okay, well, I'm maybe somewhere between moderate and comfortable. So what is that going to mean for me? So the way you want to work backwards to work out the pot size you'll need is to say, take that expense figure each year and divide it by 0.04 or 4%. So again, that will give you the pension pot size you'll need in order to achieve that level of income. Now, the one thing that we've obviously not spoken about in all of this is the state pension. So for most people, they should be entitled to the full state pension, which as it stands today is about £12,000 a year. So again, when you're looking at those figures and the expenses and the pension pot size, that's excluding your state pension. So for example, if you've looked at those figures and thought, okay, well, I'm probably going to need about £30,000 a year to live. If you're entitled to the full state pension of 12,000, that 30,000 that your expenses are, your requirement in terms of the pension pot goes down to about £18,000 a year. But again, what you've got to work out is if you're aiming to retire at 55, you're not going to have your state pension until 67 or age 68. So there's going to be a 12 or 13 year period there where you're going to still need to take that £30,000 a year from your pension pot. But the rough rule of thumb, as I say, is somewhere between 3.5% to 4%. So if you base it off of this, and the way it's going to work in reality is, if you retire at 55, you're probably going to be drawing down or taking money out of your pension pot potentially at a greater rate than that 4%. So it's maybe going to be closer to 4.5% or 5%. But then when your state pension kicks in, when you reach age 67 or 68, clearly that means you can then dial back in terms of the amount you're taking from your pension pot each year or each month. So on average, it's going to be about 4%. So you can use that as a rough guide. But as I say, the state pension really is kind of a bonus above and beyond the figures I'm discussing. Okay, so now we've kind of looked at the expenses that you'll potentially have based on your different levels of lifestyle, your pension pot size you're going to need. What we then want to do is work out, okay, well, if that's the pension pot size we're aiming for at age 55, for example, how much do I need to be contributing each month or each year to actually get to that point? Because I think for a lot of people, that is the big unknown is, some people have a rough idea as to sort of, the level of lifestyle they'll be needing in terms of the expenses and the rough pension pot size they'll need to get there. But I think where a lot of people, I suppose, come unstuck is actually knowing, okay, well, how much do I actually need to be saving to get to that point? So what I'll do now is on screen, I'll share with you, a kind of a range of different outcomes, or I suppose contributions required to get to various different points. And again, what I've done here is I've based it on you having differing levels of savings or money in your pension at various ages, so that you can kind of, I suppose, cross-reference and say, okay, well, I'm age 38 and I've got £60,000 or £75,000 in my pension. What does that mean in terms of how much I need to contribute between here and age 55 to hit my retirement pot goal? So hopefully that should give you, as I say, a rough idea as to the sort of amount you'll need to be saving each month. Now, a big caveat to add in here is that with all of these calculations, I've assumed that your pension grows at about 6% a year. So what I mean by that is that the investment return I've assumed for the pension is about 6% a year on average. Now, clearly some years it's going to be more than that, clearly some years it'll be less than that, but on average you would expect around 6% a year above inflation over a long term. Now, one thing you'll probably notice about the tables is there are some cells or areas of the table which are black. Now, for those people in those positions, you're in a very, very good position, because basically what this is saying is that if you are at that point already of having that much in your pension at that specific age, you could save no more money into your pension, and purely on the investment returns you're getting, you'll still hit that pension pot size at 55. So this should probably be quite a good, I suppose, example to certain people around the importance of really investing in your pension early, because the earlier you invest, the more chance there is that you can actually, potentially retire even earlier than 55, or it means that you can potentially get to a point where you're not saving as much into your pension, or you're going to end up with a much bigger pension pot size than you might actually require. And the other thing to bear in mind with all of this is that if you're planning to retire at 55, you're not going to be able to actually access your pension until age 57 or 58. So you're going to have a period of 2 or 3 years where you're going to be reliant on other savings and investments to fund your lifestyle. So it's all well and good having a big pension pot, but if you are in a position where you're trying to retire early, you are going to want to have a couple of years worth of expenses saved either in a savings account or an ISA, to make sure you can actually access that money as and when you need it. And again, when you're looking at those monthly contribution amounts, for some of you that's probably going to be quite daunting. So again, the thing I want to emphasize with those is that includes any contributions that your employer puts in as well. So for example, if the table's saying you need to contribute £750 a month, for example, if your employer's putting £400 a month into your pension on your behalf, it actually means that your contribution amount is only £350. So just wanted to clarify that, just in case people are looking at those figures and thinking, okay, well, I have absolutely no chance of hitting that. It does include your employer contributions as well. And again, That's why it's really important that you're actually looking at, are you maximizing the matching contributions your employer will offer? Because again, free money, and ultimately the less you'll have to put into your pension. Okay, great. So let's recap what we've discussed. So step one is to work out what your expenses will be. Now, that will largely be driven by the sort of lifestyle you want to lead. So again, look at those minimum, moderate, and comfortable, work out roughly where you are. Again, hasn't got to be an exact figure, but it should give you, I suppose, a benchmark to work from. Then you need to work out, okay, well, based on those expenses, how much do I need saved in my pension? So again, you can reference back to the tables or use the 3.5% to 4% rule to work backwards from there. You then want to look at, okay, well, how much do I need to be saving each month into my pension to get to that point? So again, refer back to the tables and hopefully that will give you a guide. If any of you are, I suppose, if your figures are not on that table or they're not particularly obvious, then please feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get back to you with the exact figures for you. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this video useful. As I say, they're all very much a rule of thumb, but hopefully it gives you an idea as to the sort of expenses you'll have, how much pension pot size you'll need, and therefore how much you need to contribute each month to get to that point. If you've enjoyed it and got some value, please do subscribe to the channel because I'll be posting a lot more videos like this in the future, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.